Today I'm with two very special guests that I can tell you right away this is going to be a very, very informative conversation. And that's exactly the reason why I invited them, because I am looking to learn a lot about taxes and property management. I have with me Mike Linder from, is it Aprio? Aprio. And Anthony Marin from MIG Properties.
MIG
Welcome,
Properties,
guys.
MIG Real Estate.
MIG Real Estate, like MIG Empire.
Hopefully one day.
I think this guy is going to be a mayor of Newark one time.
I don't think so.
I don't know if he wants that.
Politics and me don't always get along. I'm too much of a straight shooter for politics.
Yeah.
I don't like beating around the bush.
Yeah. How's Newark, by the way, doing?
Newark is great, man. Newark is, I don't want to say booming, but I mean, if you really want to go someplace and see just, I think we're at the point we're kind of going to get that hockey stick. It's been like this for a while, and then I think we're going to have that moment. I mean, you're seeing cranes going up. You're seeing big companies like McKinsey put their headquarters there. You're getting a lot of renters from New York, Brooklyn coming down. We're there, so we see it. We're seeing a lot of investment happening there. So I think Newark is on its way. I think it's going to have his Jersey City / Hoboken moment where when it was going well and then kind of boom.
I mean, it's already like I was in Ironbound and just seeing houses come down and just like beautiful houses go up, and it's like 2, 3. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, and the Iberia project just got approved 9-0 from the council. So we're talking about 1,000 units a block away from Penn Station.
Is that the tall building?
It used to be the Iberia restaurant. And so they bought the Iberia restaurant, which is an acre of land, right? So you have an acre of land across street from Penn Station on the Ironbound section.
Yeah.
So that alone was worth $40 million. They paid $40 million just for the dirt. And then they're going to build 1,000 units on top of that.
1,000 units.
Yeah, so it's a huge project in 3 phases. That's going to be a game changer. Like just again, that.
So we're basically going to have like a skyscraper in Ironbound.
Yeah, 25 stories. I mean, that's not even a real skyscraper. But it's 25 stories.
It's a big building.
But it's on an acre, so you just have a lot of space. You don't get that much space in Newark, really. So it's going to be a great project.
That's amazing. What's
driving the change and what's driving all the investment?
I think the natural resources in Newark, you can't argue them. Like I even threw it in ChatGPT recently. I'm like, when you think about airport, rail system, port, entertainment with NJPAC and Prudential
Hospital.
Center, when you put all those factors and put them all together, what other cities compare? Newark was number 3. Los Angeles was number 1. Chicago number 2. Newark is number 3. Wow. So the natural resources in Newark, you can't deny them. So that's what's fueling all of this, and it was happening. And then you had, the boom, the crash of I guess .com or whatever was with that, and then it was happening again. Then you had COVID that knocked it down, and so now we're gonna go. And unless something big happens again, it's gonna happen. It's not if, it's when.
I mean, if you look at it, I mean, there's so many industries in Newark. You got the port.
Yeah, you have everything.
You got the airport. You got.
You have eds and meds. You have 40,000 students. You have one of the best medical systems in the country is in New Jersey and in Newark. So we have everything. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You have eds and meds, you have the port, you have the airport, you have the rail system, and then you have New York City, which is an asset too. I mean, New York City is right next door. So you can't doubt the natural resources that Newark has.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And first of all, like I invited you specifically, Mike, because there's so much, misinformation nowadays, especially when it comes to taxes. Mm-hmm. And it kind of connects because, like I'm sure like that project, like buying, for example, you have a property in Newark, big building. And then to go from that property into buy another property, like I hear so many people use the word 1031 exchange. But what really is a 1031 exchange? How does it work?
So a 1031 exchange it's this regulation under the tax code that allows you to defer a gain on a like asset if you purchase another like asset. And what's a like asset? So like asset is real estate. It doesn't matter the nature of the real estate. It can be residential, commercial, industrial, raw land, doesn't matter, it just needs to be real estate. So what you can do is now there's specific rules you have to follow. I'm not going to go into the rules of, the 45-day the 180 days. But the key thing is that you need to go through a qualified intermediary. The qualified intermediary needs to take the proceeds. Everything needs to go through them with the purchase. And what it allows you to do is allows you to defer the gain on the sale of your property if you go into a bigger property. You know, two of the key rules that you need to know is you need to spend your cash. If you receive any cash, it's boot and it's taxable, and you need to cover your debt. So if you had, you know, $1 million and $1 million of cash and $1 million of debt, you need to spend $1 million, you need to get $1 million of debt. You can, under that same scenario, you can go and spend 1.5 and only get $500,000 of debt. You're allowed to replace your debt with cash, but you wouldn't be able to spend $500,000 of cash and get 1.5 million of debt. You can't replace cash with debt. That would be boot. You'd have cash in hands. But it's a great way to defer the gain that you have on a property by going into a new property.
So just to clarify, because again, I hear a lot of people just selling an investment property and they're like, okay, you know what? I just sold an investment property. I'll buy another one, so then I'll do a 1031 exchange. You need an intermediary. You need an actual 1031.
Yes, somebody who will take the funds, because if you receive the funds, then you're done. No 1031. And you said something that's very important. You said investment property. It has to be property held for investment. You can't do it on a vacation home. You can't do it on your personal residence. It has to be held for investment. You know, you can't. Accountants frown upon. You do a 1031 and then 3 weeks later, you sell the property. That brings into doubt, was it really an investment property or were you really, your intention really to sell? So it's investment property. You sell the property, you go through the qualified intermediary, and it allows you the ability to defer the gain. Okay. Doesn't make the gain go away, it defers the gain.
Is this something that you deal with as a property manager? Like, do you advise people on that, or is that this is where you'll be like, hey,
so it's definitely something worth thinking about, because again, you have like the way I started and a lot of my clients started, right? We started buying 2 and 3 unit properties, and you want to grow. Using the 1031 exchange is a great way to grow, because you can buy your 2-family, hold that for 3 or 4 years, build up 400K in equity, right? And then when you sell it, instead of paying the capital gains or paying the taxes on that, you just move all that money again. Make sure you have your intermediary in place before you close. So you give that money to the intermediary, and then you go look for a 10-unit building. You put all that cash, all that money into the 10-unit building as your down payment. You get new debt, and now you just you turned your 2-unit property into a 10-unit property, and you didn't have to pay any taxes. So that's something we advise our clients all the time. We would make sure they do it the right way.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned, you said you didn't want to get into it, but what are the without going too much, because I'm sure it's like a huge topic, but like, what are the timelines? Is it 45 days?
45 days to identify replacement properties. So you sell, you have 45 days to formally identify replacement properties. There's, limits on the number of properties you can identify. There is limits on, you can then go to 200% of the property value and identify as many as you can. There's different rules. Then there's the 180 days. That's the number of days you need to close and purchase the new property. Yeah. And you can buy as many properties as you need to cover your 1031 and your sale. But yes, you only have 180 days to do it.
And really quickly, Danny, those time limits come along quick. They sound like a lot, but I've had this situation where I sold a property and I thought I'd find something really quickly and get it, pay the intermediary, and we wound up not finding something worth investing, because again, just because you're going to save some tax savings doesn't mean you want to put that into a bad investment, right? Yeah. You want to make sure it's still a good investment. So when I advise clients to do it, I would say start looking for the property in advance. Know the property you're going to 1031 into, then put your property for sale. As long as you put a good price on it, it's going to sell, right? And maybe you take a little bit of a discount to get it sold so you can get into the next one. That's better than forcing yourself to get into a bad property because you didn't identify one early and you're forced to do it quickly. Yeah,
you should definitely identify as many properties as you possibly can. You never know what's going to happen in the whole due diligence and closing. Yep. Is there going to be environmental issues? Is the seller going to get cold feet? Is the seller going to get a better deal? Yeah. And so you can be caught with thinking you're going into a 1031, planning for a 1031, and then now actually not being able to complete the 1031, having to pay tax just because you didn't identify enough properties, and deals
Do they
fall
let
through.
you identify three? I think three or
Yeah,
four?
three properties.
Three properties.
Or as many properties as you want, as long as it doesn't exceed 200% of the fair market value of the property.
So the other thing. So let's say it's I'm selling a $500,000 property.
Yes.
I need to go and buy another at least $500,000 property or more, right?
Yes.
It cannot be less than.
If it's less, then you're going to end up with cash likely.
cash.
And if you end up with cash, there's a gain.
And then let's say, what about, can it be multiple purpose? I don't think you mentioned it, but like, so $500,000, I sell my 2-family home, and then I go ahead and buy 3 condos for $175. Is that still good?
Yes. We had a client that sold a $20 million Home Depot. You don't find those deals, that often. So I think they bought 25 replacement properties just because they had to keep buying properties to get the value and spend all of their proceeds. So you're allowed to spend as long as you can identify, as long as it's not. So if you sell that $20 million property, you can go identify 15 properties that are 30 million. You just can't do 45 million because now you're over 200%.
Yeah. So now, Anthony, and because you not only do property management, but you're also a real estate broker. Yep. But you specifically, if you can talk a little bit about what you do, because you don't focus more on the residential, but yes and no. But if you can just go into that aspect,
At the end of the day, I consider myself a real estate investor that also owns a real estate brokerage. Mm-hmm. So we started by buying properties. We got a bunch of investment properties. Then we needed a property manager. Couldn't find a good property manager, so we started a property management firm. And then once we were doing property management, we had buys and sales that our clients wanted to do. So we were giving that to other agents. So I said, that doesn't make sense. I might as well have my own brokerage so we can offer the full suite. So at this point, we're a real estate investment firm and also a brokerage. And they kind of marry each other because what we can do is when we invest, we need the property management, the maintenance, and the leasing. And then we also offer those skills and those products to other investors because they need it as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship. I get to invest and I get to do all the things I enjoy doing, but I also have the things that we need to be successful at investing. And then we also offer those services to other investors because I know they need those services as well. So
what is your typical client? Like, you have somebody just a first-time investor, or do you also deal with very big, large?
At this point, we're doing both. We have investors that start off with a 3-family, and we help them get that 3-family. We help them renovate it. We help them lease it, do the maintenance, and kind of run it. And then, if they got to refinance, we'll call you and have them refinance, get that money back, and then they can buy their second one. But we also have 100-unit buildings that we're managing, and we help them take care of that whole thing. So we're doing everything in between. We just got a large commercial client, 24-acre commercial client with 9 very large commercial tenants on that property. So at this point, we're kind of moving into the commercial as well. And our investing, we're starting to look at those as well. So my brokerage has kind of modeled where my business is going as an investor. So we've got a multifamily real estate portfolio. We're looking at commercial deals. And then our client roster kind of mirrors that as well. So we had a lot of small multifamily. Now we got large multifamily. Now we have commercial clients. So at the end of the day, the goal is to be a real estate investment firm that also helps other larger. We're kind of moving into just the larger. It's kind of hard to keep with the smaller clients, but we want to help the larger investors be able to grow their portfolios as well.
So kind of stupid question, but I'm sure a lot of people don't know. So I just bought a 2-family home. Why should I use a property manager? Is it simply, hey, collecting rent, or is there more to it,
Well, there's definitely more to it, right? It depends. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're new, this is what I say all the time. If you're new to investing, you should manage your own property for a limited amount of time, right? You should collect the rent. You should do the maintenance. You should you're not going to do the leasing because you need a license for that. But I always advise people to do a little bit of it so they can taste it. Mm-hmm. Because unless you really know all the moving parts to managing a property, you're not going to really appreciate what a property manager does, because depending on how small or big the property is, we are going to take anywhere from 4 to 10% of the income. Mm-hmm. That's going to be our fee to manage that property. But once you understand all the things that we can do and how easy we can make your life, then you're gonna realize how much it's worth paying that fee. Because at the end of the day, although it's not hands off, right? We're still gonna be communicating. Being able to still go to your job, not worry about the property, and just get your income on a monthly basis directly sent to your bank account. That's great, and that's how the equity grows, the value grows, and then we have a conversation about buying 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you're only spending, 10 hours a year on looking at your statements, making sure everything's good, and then I give you your yearly statement, you send it to Mike as your accountant, he's gonna do your taxes for you, and that's it. You collect your money every month. At the end of the year, you give your statement to your accountant, he does your taxes every year, and it's great when you have the right team, and it's not just a property manager, it's your finance person, it's your accountant, it's your lawyer, it's a bunch of others as well, but that's a part of the team if you're gonna be a successful real estate investor.
Yeah, because listen, the biggest thing that people ask me when it comes to real estate investing, and I'm kind of going through it right now myself, and it's like, you get to a point where, you're not making millions of dollars, but you start making enough that you realize that a tax bill, it's hefty. Mm-hmm. And you start asking your questions, is like, how can I lower that? So, we had this conversation when I met you the first time at, a networking event. And it was like, look, I need something that I need to lower my tax bill. And so what are the tax advantages of owning real estate?
The tax advantages of owning real estate, there's the depreciation, which is a big factor. There is, really it's like any other business where you're deducting all your expenses, you're deducting your travel, you're going out and you're looking at properties. But it's really that depreciation is the big one where you can really get the bang for your buck. Real estate, depending on the type of property, is depreciated over a long time, the building, the structure. But you can go get a cost segregation, which could then, you'll have an engineer come in. We do cost segregations. We'll come in, we'll look at your property, and we'll say, hey, this is, structures. This is 15-year property. This is 10-year, 5-year, 7-year property. And then you can accelerate depreciation deductions based off that.
Can that be done? So cost segregation, can that be done on a residential property, like a 2-family?
It could be done on any property. You generally get a more bang for your buck on a commercial property because you have more of those personal property type items as opposed to residential is mostly the house. It's mostly, you generally don't have all those items. You can do it. Mm-hmm. You can generate depreciation deductions by doing it, but mostly you're going to get a better bang for your buck on a commercial property.
Because usually, depreciation on a residential, it's like 27 and a half years.
27 and a half years. 27
and a half years. So if let's say, what would it be for like a multifamily, like a 10-unit building?
Well, you can find, there's different classes of property, right? It's real property, which, 27 and a half, 39 commercial. And then there are different personal property levels. It could be 5-year property, 7-year property, 10-year property. And those are subject to, you're allowed to take bonus depreciation on those. Bonus depreciation used to be 100%. In the tax bill, the 2017 tax bill, it lowered it down to 80%, 60% in 2024. Bill expires this year. Who knows what happens?
Hopefully
anticipating it's going to go back
100.
up to 100%, but you can get this big depreciation deduction, which is great if you can use it. Now, that brings into who gets to use the depreciation deduction. So real estate by nature is passive. That means that you are only allowed to deduct losses up to...
passive.
Passive. Yes. Well, we'll get to that.
It depends.
We'll get to that, right?
It depends.
So,
well, actually, it's never 100. It's never 100%.
Let me hold you there because I know you'll go.
It's a passive activity, so you're only allowed to deduct passive losses up to passive income, or if you're at certain income levels, you can deduct a little bit more. There is a concept out there. So the bill came out in 1986. They changed the law. They make real estate passive. All these people in the real estate business are just like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on, right? If I'm a dentist and I have a loss, I can deduct that loss. I'm a real estate professional. That's my job. Why don't I get to deduct those losses? So they came and they added something to the law about real estate professionals. And if you are truly a real estate professional, it changes your real estate rental activities from passive to ordinary, so you're able to deduct those losses. Now, you can't just go and say, oh, I'm a real estate professional, right? You need to be a real estate professional. That needs to be your job. There's a lot of rules that you need to jump through to be a real estate professional.
So, for example, right now, just to put a number, between my wife and I, we make $1 million.
Okay.
And I go ahead and buy a building.
Yes.
Right. So basically, I can go ahead and say we're gonna do a bonus, a depreciation on one of these things, and if I somehow I can deduct $500,000 in depreciation from that, basically that goes against my W-2 income.
Are you a real estate professional?
Okay, so I have to be.
So now you said W-2 income, right? So, it's a great law and there's great rules, but you have to be a real estate professional.
You have to be a real estate
There's
professional.
laws you need. It's 750 hours of real estate. It has to be more than 50% of your time. So as, an accountant, right? I spent 2,000 hours plus being an accountant. It's very tough to spend that extra 2,000 hours investing in real estate and being a real estate professional, right? That's two jobs.
So can I change the question a little bit?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same situation, husband and wife. Husband is a real estate professional. Wife is not, but she brings in a lot of the W-2 income, right?
Yes.
Same situation, property, bonus depreciation. We have all these depreciation. Can you depreciate
You can
your
take
wife's
those losses.
W-2? Yeah,
Yes,
because
you can
it's
take
together,
those losses
right?
because
So there you
it's
go.
your
So you just
profession.
gotta, you should be able to figure out how to make yourself a real estate professional.
Type
and
in
there you
right
go.
here. I see.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
that's
there's
it.
certain industries that you can work in where if you're working in those industries, you're a real estate professional. It's brokerage, it's management. I can get the list. It's development, redevelopment, construction, acquiring, converting, renting,
Financing?
leasing, operation, brokering, not financing.
No financing.
So if you're doing one of those jobs and then you are actively investing and managing real properties, you can be a real estate professional if you meet the participation, the hours. There's certain rules, but it's not, you can't be something else.
Yeah.
And then say I'm a real. Well,
I mean,
that's not true.
you could, but it has to be feasible, right? Like
But you have
You have to prove it.
You
You have
have
to
to
prove
be
it.
spending more than half your time as one of those real estate businesses. So as an accountant working 2,000 hours, and we see this all the time. It's like, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney, I'm a doctor, but I have real estate and I spend, 500 hours a year working on this. And it's like, well, but that's not more than 50% of the time that you spend working, right? You're a doctor who invests in real estate.
Yeah.
You're a lawyer who invests in real estate. You're not a real estate professional. And that's a big difference. You need to be a real estate professional to be able to take advantage and change the losses from your real estate from passive to ordinary.
I actually have a quick accounting question, and it came up in my personal. I think a lot of your listeners would be interested to hear this too. So I just built a new house and moved into a new house, a new 2-family. I have my 3-family that I've owned for a long time. Although my wife is not too excited about the idea, I was thinking about selling that property because if you sell the property you lived in, I think it's 3 of the past 5 years, you don't pay taxes on the property you've lived in. Is it all the gains? Is it a portion of the gains?
It's a portion
That's
of
the
gains.
question.
So personal residence. You sell a
Personal
personal
residence,
residence.
yes.
You have to use it as your personal residence for 2 out of the past 5 years.
Is it 2 or 3?
It's 2.
It's 2. Okay, so I thought
So
it was
if
3.
you
So there you
qualify
go.
for that, you get to exclude $250,000 of gain if you're single, $500,000 of gain if you're married filing jointly.
Okay, so if you're going to clear $1 million, you're only going to get the tax benefit on $500K if you're married.
Yes.
Okay,
Your gain,
so there is a
your gain
limit.
is excluded for $500,000. Now, in your situation, it's a little different, right? Because it's mixed use, right? You got your personal portion and you got your rental portion. So there's other things involved there that you would need to talk to somebody about and figure out, all right, what do I do here? How does this work? But yes, you own a house, you sell the house, you buy a new house, and if you use it as your personal residence for 2 out of the past 5 years, you get to exclude the gain, a portion of the gain.
I mean, all of this you're talking is so, it really highlights the point that the tax laws are complicated and that it's not as easy as you see it online.
Yes.
Sometimes,
Yes.
because I could hear so many people were like, I get so many people were like, they tell you, oh yeah, just buy a house and you're going to be I'll be honest with you, I wasn't I heard about the real estate professional rule, but I really didn't. In my head, I thought, yeah, this could work, but this is why we have.
If you're gonna do real, listen, I mentioned about your team. You need to have a team if you're gonna do real estate. And arguably, I could make the point for a property manager, but honestly, if you're gonna do real estate seriously, your accountant is the most important person on your team, because there are so many factors as to how you're gonna do things, what you're gonna do, and it's your biggest bill, right? At the end of the day, you always pay attention to your biggest bill, and your taxes are gonna be your biggest bill. So, your accountant is top person on your team, attorney, top person on your team, property manager, top person on your team, and then whoever's doing all the financing of all your stuff. Those are the 4 people you need initially if you're gonna take it seriously. And by seriously, I mean, if you have 2 or 3 properties and you're bringing in, 10 grand a month, that's 10 grand a month that you wanna make sure you're handling it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely anything. But yeah, look, it's all dealing. I mean, most of my customers are residential. I do some mixed use. I do a little bit of maybe 8 to 10 units. But it is so common to see people come to me and give me some weird rules that even if I don't have an idea, I go like, that doesn't sound correct. That doesn't sound correct. And I wanted to ask you, like, what are some of those things that you see out there that you go like, hey, this is not correct. Like, this is not something that people...
Well, you mentioned it earlier. Nothing drives me more nuts than when you go on TikTok and Instagram and you hear these real estate gurus and they're like, oh, you can get real estate with 0 money, passive. You don't have to do anything. You can just go here and do this, read this book, listen to this audio, and you'll be able to make $10,000 a month. Like, that drives me nuts, because there's nothing in real estate that is completely passive. And even someone that knows what they're doing and knows how to invest it, at the end of the day, you can give your $1,000 or $1 million to the best syndicator in the US, and they get into the best deals and they do everything correctly. At the end of the day, you had to do some homework to figure out who that syndicator was. So there's already that's not passive. You got to do your homework. But then even after that, they're going to send you quarterly reports. And those quarterly reports, you should be reading those and understand how those investments are doing. So there's nothing that's completely passive, and you're just going to not look at it and expect to see, oh, nice, my 10, 15, 20, 25% gains are there, because it's just not there. You have to do the homework. That's step 1. And then if you're going to invest with anything else, you have to be on top of the people that you're giving your money to and investing with, because no investment goes perfect 100% of the time. Things always go awry sometimes, and you should be aware of what's going on.
So what is really considered passive? Passive is basically you have like a stock and you receive dividends, that's it? Or,
Yeah, it's an investment or a business you don't participate in.
You don't participate, yeah.
Well,
Right.
Mike and I will have 2 different
Yes.
meanings for passive.
Yeah.
I'm talking
From an
about
accounting
the tax-
from an
from an
accounting
tax
perspective,
perspective, that's
real
what I
estate is passive for
Yes.
someone that has a W-2 job and they're receiving that income. That's passive income. My point is that it's not passive in the time sense of it. From an accounting perspective, it is, but from the time that you have to put in to be a successful real estate investor, especially in the beginning, right? In the beginning, you're going to be doing a lot, and after you figure it out, yeah, it gets more and more passive, but it's never going to be 100% passive.
And you find generally those people that are really the real estate investors, that's their job.
Yeah.
They're more the real estate professional, because as Anthony said, you can't just really just dabble in it and expect to do well. I mean, you could do well, but you're not going to be, buying and selling and doing all the things that a real estate professional does. And really, to follow up what Anthony said, it's just working with experts. You need to work with people that know what they're doing. We find that, with accountants, most people inherit their accountants, right? This is my parents' accountants, and this is what I've done, and I've inherited them. And for a lot of people, it works great. But, if you are going into something specific, you're going into real estate, you should be working with somebody who understands the real estate rules and the expert, because they're going to generally do a better job than the generalist that is, I can do a real estate tax return. Anybody can do a real estate tax return, but it's the guidance and, the mistake.
You can go to TurboTax and do it.
Well, the mistakes you make, it's like, I can sell a property and I can just buy another one, and that's a 1031. And while the basics of that are true, I can't sell a property, put the cash in my bank account, go buy another property and say I've done a 1031. Yeah. there's a big, that's what you might say is just, just a word difference. Yeah, well, I'm selling it and I'm buying, but there's rules you need to follow that if you go astray of those rules, there's a big tax bill and it's like, oh no.
What happens if you screw up and you make that mistake? Is there a way to go back and fix it, or no? Once you put that
Once
money
you put that
into
cash in your bank account, it's
done.
yours. You're done.
But yeah.
You're done.
I mean, a lot of the conversations I have with my younger clients or the people that are just getting into real estate is that, like, who is your accountant? Do they do real estate, right? I hear it all the time where they have, again, they inherited or it's their parents' accountant. I'm like, okay, what percentage of real estate are they doing compared to everything else? I'm like, oh, well, he does divorces and he does this and this and that. I'm like, no. You need to have someone that does real estate the majority of the time. And it's because you should be able to bounce ideas off your accountant, right? Because no one knows everything. I don't know everything about accounting. So if I have a plan or if I'm doing something, I'm able to call Mike and, hey, Mike, what do your other clients do in this situation? And he can advise me, oh, we just did this with this guy. We just did this with this person. So a part of making sure that everything gets done right, because again, if they're not doing real estate all the time, they may make a mistake, right? But on top of that, it's an advisor as well. You need someone that you can bounce ideas off of so that when you do it, instead of figuring it out after, you can do it the right way from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, it's just like anything else in any other industry. I mean, there are some people that have had experiences in many different things and that they're going to bring that experience and help you. I talk about sometimes of like, you can get a mortgage anywhere, but the key is to have that person that knows how to handle your unique situation. Because there are so many people out there that they're willing to take your money.
Yeah,
nobody's going to say no to your money.
It's those three. I mean, the people are at this table. So you have between the banker, the person that's doing the financing, the accounting, and the lawyer. They control the transactions. You don't know how many times. I mean, accountant's not really in the transaction. It's more of after. But like, how many transactions I've been in where the banker / mortgage person and the attorney kill a deal because they just don't know what to do or how to like react. If you're buying anything that's not just plain vanilla FHA, straightforward, blah, blah, blah. If there's any kind of nuance, you need someone that's experienced because, especially with the attorneys, attorneys kill deals all the time because they just don't know how to be creative. If it's not like in this little box, it's frustrating because you could be giving, like I had a situation where a tenant was going to buy one of our properties and I was going to give her a loan because she wasn't going to be able to qualify with the income she made, but I know she had cash. Oh, I think I might have called you about this situation. Right, I called you. And she had cash, but they just didn't have the income. So I was like, listen, I'll give you a note for this for 2 years. You'll pay me this, and then this is when you'll get the property in your name, and then you can refinance. Refinance is easier to do than an actual purchase. I laid out the whole plan. She agreed. Her husband agreed. They had to get an attorney. Once they talked to the attorney about it, he blew it all up. No, you can't trust them. This can happen, that. Yes, all those things can happen, but we trust each other. I've had this tenant for almost 10 years. So, but he messed up we were giving her the property at a discount, and the attorney blew up the deal for her.
Yeah, I mean, and accountants can certainly help on transactions and structuring deals and ins and outs and what you want to do. There's all these creative things that can be done. So, and really it comes to, like Anthony said, it's the advisory. I mean, we're accountants, we're an advisory firm, really. It's really the advice. Accountants look into the past and they fill out forms based on what happened. Advisors shape the future and they shape the forms that are filled out based on the planning and advice they give. And really, as Anthony said, it's the conversations. If you're thinking about doing something in real estate, you need to talk to your accountant. You need to talk to brokers, right? You're doing a 1031 or you're considering a 1031 and you go talk to the broker and the broker's like, oof, I don't know. It's going to be tough to find a property. That affects what you want to do on selling. So, because you have the time frame. So you really, the more people you talk to, the more experts you talk to, the more people on your team who know about what your plans are, they can give you advice, they can have conversations and really help you do the right thing and do the thing that's going to be most beneficial to you.
Yeah, and I keep on saying in all my videos and everything, I mean, you have to just sit down and make a plan for the short term and the long term. And so many times when you introduce me to people and you tell me, hey, look, you know, this person is actual plan is to buy 2-3 properties in the next few years. And it's like, hey, how do we get the mortgage in a way that we can set this person up for success in the future? And like you said, the key is being an advisor, because so many people are there in sales. The bottom line is like, hey, this is an industry that's, you know, not so much with accountants, but
It's
you know,
a sell industry.
yeah, it's a, you know, you make money when you sell your
And
services.
that's such a fact, because most brokers aren't going to do that. They're just going to look to put them in the product that's going to pay them the most at the time, and it's probably not going to be beneficial for them to get their second and third property later. So that's 90% of the mortgage brokers aren't even thinking about that or having that conversation. They're just, how much money can I make right now?
It's really about the plan, right? Because, you know, the long-term plan affects the short-term moves.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's definitely important about the plan and what the long-term moves are. And yeah, I mean, it is definitely a sell type environment. And, you know, we have these fundamentals we live by, and every week we have a different fundamental. The one this week is do right for the client. And even if it's to your detriment, you know, what's best for the client? What's best for the client? That's going to provide value. That's going to get you a long-term client. By doing something for the client that doesn't necessarily benefit them, or benefits them but not as much as something else, but benefits you as the accountant or anybody. Yeah, you get a sale right there, but you're not building up a long-term client. You're not building a long-term trust.
That adage is timeless. And until you've been doing it for as long as now, I think a lot of us have been doing it now, you know, doing it 10 years. When you were doing it in the beginning, when things were tight and maybe you didn't have the P&L that looked so great, but you're going to lose money on this decision that you know is going to help your client, you know, that maybe hurt in the beginning, but that adage is timeless. You took care of your client.
Tenfold,
now,
right?
10 years later, that client's still there, and that client's gotten you 5 more clients, and now it's
Comes
one of your
back-
best clients. So that adage is timeless, and I wish more people thought about it that way. But as we all
Yeah, I
know,
mean,
that's not the case.
we meet with potential clients or clients, and we lay out, listen, this is all the things Aprio can do for you.
Yeah.
We can do tons of things that you wouldn't even think an accountant can do. And I always say, listen, I'm not trying to sell you all these services, because, you know, people don't want to be sold to, but I'm letting you know these are the things that we can help you with. You know, think about it. If it's important to you, we can do it. If it's not, we don't need to. We don't need to do it today. We don't need to tomorrow. But, you know, these are the ways we can help. And, you know, think about, you know, what we can help you get. You know, what you will alleviate those fears, reach those goals. What can we do?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, and then to go back to the point, a lot of real estate professionals, mortgage professionals, they tend to go into this industry thinking that, oh, it's only one transaction. And what you realize later in life, and the same thing with that, I mean, anything really in life, is that
any business.
as people start on their 20s, you know, most people end up doing very good later on in life. And they always come back. Even though it's a one transaction at a time, but they're going to come back and all the time. And once you do, if you do it right the first time, if you're upfront and honest with the client, they're always going to remember that.
I mean, people remember when they were treated right.
Yeah.
They were treated with respect. They were working with a professional who helped them. They remember that. Likewise, they remember when they feel like they got screwed, right? Yeah. And they're like, I'm not going back to that person, you know. So people like to work with people they know. They like to work with people they like. They like to work with people they're comfortable with. So if you treat somebody well, there's a very good chance that they're going to come back.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I'm at the point now where I used to do like these 15-minute calls with people just to, you know, advise them on whatever they had. And I had like 2 college kids already that I met with like 5-6 years ago, and that I gave them advice on how to get their first property and what to do. And I never made $1 from them. I just took the time, told them what to do, and they went out and did it. And I've gotten calls back from them 5 years later. Anthony, I got 3 properties. This is great, blah, blah, blah. What can I do? This and that. And it's great. It's good. It's a good feeling. Like at the end of the day, you know, one I've made money on, one I haven't. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I did what I felt was right at the time. And you help people. And it's just, that's the way it should be. At the end of the day, as long as you're out there helping people, it'll come back to you
nature,
in
right?
droves.
I mean, you know, everybody likes to hear that they help somebody and somebody say thank you, and you know, it makes you feel good. So You know,
And I'm always gonna bring
willing
it
to help
up.
people.
I'm always gonna bring this up every time I'm with you because it's a critical point in my life. But the way I met you and the way we started a relationship was because you helped me get out of a huge.
Yeah, I
and
remember.
and I can say that in that transaction, he basically helped me out of a huge problem I had, and it was a situation where there was a lot for you to gain in the future, but not at the moment. At the moment, it was a mess. And for me, we could have looked at it as, hey, this was going to be I'm losing out on the future. But in reality, I'm like, it was just the right time where you educated me. You gave me my options. You told me, hey, this is what you can do. This is how the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we were able to basically get it done.
Yeah.
And you know what? I am here now because I solved that problem, with that property. And which goes back to the whole thing of real estate is not passive.
It's
You
not-
know,
I
you
mean,
need,
it was, that's one of my favorite case studies talking about that deal, and it could have gone really bad because we were able to get that really bad tenant out right before COVID. Right?
Literally
right before COVID. So if I don't get that tenant out,
Never getting them
and
out.
then I'm done. Then she's there for another 2-3 years, and then it's not nice at the end of the tunnel where I just sold that property, we just made a good amount of money. Then it's a complete negative. And again, I still help Danilo out, but again, I'm glad you brought that up because not every deal is gonna work out. You take a risk by going into this game, and that's another thing you hate. Oh yeah, real estate is not easy. It's doable if you're persistent and you make the right moves, but the line for being successful in a deal and not being successful sometimes is really, really small, and it's all about how quick you can get something done.
and just to put it into kind of give out not too many details, but just enough where this was a transaction that I know you made really good money on it. And at the time, many people came to me and said, why are you doing that? You could do this and that, right? And because of our relationships and the way you explained it to me was like, hey, Lisa, I'm going to get you out of this. This was going to happen. This is the risk I'm taking. This happened literally right before COVID. Actually happened during COVID, but before it blew up in March 2020. But for me, I had this property where it was just killing me. I was in just financial distress. And if I didn't get out of that property, I probably would have been still, So it was a win-win situation where you were able to make a good deal. And for me, it just allowed me to completely move
And
ahead.
that to me is the best part of real estate because you can, if both sides want to go into it this way, you can create win-wins for both sides if you want to. It's tough because when you get out there, especially when you start getting into the bigger properties in the commercial game, there's not too many other investors that are looking to create win-wins. It's all about me and how can I get as much from you, and you got to navigate that. But when you actually find someone that wants to create win-wins on both sides, I think that's the best business in business.
Well, you're developing relationships. You know that if you can work with somebody that's reasonable, somebody's always going to need help. You're going to need help. They're going to need help. And who are they going to come to? The person that's willing to work with them and give them a good deal and to be reasonable.
Yeah.
And we talk to people all the time. If Anthony didn't talk to you and give you that advice, he would have never had the deal.
Yeah.
And so it's why wouldn't you try and help somebody, right? It's more than just, necessarily closing the deal for financial gain. It's building a relationship. It's building trust, because if you do that, it just comes back to you.
Yeah. My Mike knows the deal. It's 43 Skylar.
All right, great.
It was that
was it.
property.
That was me.
That's you, all right.
And if I
where I
bet
got
you,
it from.
I bet you anything that anybody who, nobody would have touched that.
Nobody we tried.
would've
Well,
touched
the first part of it, we're going to try and sell it for you. And we brought people there like, no way. There was 10 dogs in the basement.
10 dollars,
There was 10 dogs in the basement. People, it was the lady had taken over the entire property. It was a shit show.
And
there's
you know
nothing else
what?
to say.
I had properties in the past, and I'm telling you, I was completely scared at that moment. I didn't know exactly what to do. I had no money whatsoever on how to handle, I didn't know anything. And you know what? I said to myself, let me rely, our friend
Sometimes
Juan
you gotta just
Garcia.
tap
Talk to the
out.
experts.
Sometimes
You
you,
know
just
what?
got to tap out.
I was
and that's
like,
on deals in general.
Look, I'll leave it to you. You tell me, okay, this was going to do. I trust you. And I probably, I think, you feel the same way. But our relationship Like we're always gonna be. We know how we work, and there's so many more things that we have done after that that it's a well-established relationship based on a situation that it was that we did the right thing.
Yeah, but I think there's a real good lesson there for new investors and experienced investors. Sometimes you just got to tap out of a deal. I've tapped out. You know what? I thought this deal was going to go this way. It's going this way. Instead of me losing more money and trying to get this out, let me just sell it here, take the loss, let someone else that is looking for something like this and wants to take it from here, and let them do it. Taking a loss is not a bad thing.
If it's a bad deal, you
right.
don't want to be in a bad
Just
deal.
you're better off cutting your losses on the bad ones and just focusing on the good ones.
And I mean, you don't need to know the market you're going into. I mean, how many stories have we heard in the early 2000s of people buying properties in Florida and then, having to
Always have a plan.
Yep, always, the plan is, I'm going to buy this property in Florida and it's going to do great. And then all of a sudden, it's being foreclosed on. And I know we had a client that happened to, and they weren't a client yet. They went to whoever their accountant was, and they owe so much in tax, right? The property was taken back, and they were talking to an attorney who was on the deal and working on, I think it was a short sale, and said, you should talk to my friend Mike. He does real estate. His firm does real estate, and we were able to, where his accountant was, hey, you owe $15,000. We ended up with a $30,000 refund. Just because we knew the rules, we were able to follow all the rules and take advantage of things that, we knew because we were experts in the field, and it was a good way to get out of a bad situation. Yeah. But his problem was he went into a market where he didn't know it, and he just followed the wave and the fad, it's
one of my favorite quotes, and it's a Mike Tyson quote. Everyone has a plan till you get punched in the face. Yeah. And when you get punched in the face, what are you going to do? And at the end of the day, you got punched in the face, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong. Every boxer is going to tell you they get punched in the face. Yeah. And it's how you recover is whether you're going to be a winner or a loser. And that's what happens. You got punched in the face. You figured out, hey, I'm done with this. I'm going to figure out a way for me to get out of this. And you flourished since that happened. Yeah. And then someone else took it on and were able to flourish too. So there's nothing wrong with getting punched in the face and then figuring it out from there.
And real estate's not like going into the stock market and saying, all right, I'm going to go with, $10,000-$15,000 into the stock market, right? You now are putting in serious money if you're buying a piece of real estate.
And it's illiquid too, so it's not like you can just
get it out.
It's not like
you can just get it out,
I got my stop loss on my 10-unit building. No, that doesn't.
No, it doesn't work that way.
That doesn't work.
Especially if the value's going down, it makes it harder to get out of it, right? You need to find that person who wants it, who has an idea, who has a plan, who has a vision that can repurpose the property or do something to change the property. Again, go to the brokers. That's their job. The brokers, they know the investors, and they can get the right person for your property and to solve your problem. Yeah. Right? It might not have been the right property for you, but it may be a right property for somebody else.
Yeah, well, listen, guys, we're running out of time, but I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, I feel like this is something that I honestly, we're definitely going to have another one because I think there's so many more topics that I want to learn about. Especially, it's so important for people to, again, have the right professionals working for you. Yeah, the people that actually know. And it goes back to mortgages too. Like, you don't want to work with somebody, that does, that all they do is the regular FHA and conventional, and then try to have them to do something like a non-QM or DSCR or all these mortgages that just takes a little bit more work and knowledge. So once again, thank you. Hope to see you guys again.
This was great.
I appreciate it.